Welcome back, everybody, to episode 94 of Streaming with the Mouse, where today we are talking about episode 2 of the first season of Marvel Studios' What If, titled What If T'Challa Became a Star-Lord. Sit back, relax, this is Streaming with the Mouse. Welcome on back to episode 94 of Streaming with the Mouse. My name's Cam. Joining me, as always, is my co-pilot, my co-host, Cliff. Cliff, say hello to the nice people.
I'm surprised I didn't get I don't know, would it be T'Challa Lord to Yondu? Who
That was
knows?
terrible. That was so bad. My fellow Avenger, Cliff. Cliff,
Oh,
say hello to the nice people.
hello everyone.
How are you doing today, Cliff?
Oh, pretty good. I mean, it's been a little bit. We had a week off. Sorry to everyone about the season finale of Star Wars: The Bad Batch. Maybe we'll get to it.
We'll figure it out.
We'll see. But wow is all I can say to this upcoming episode we're going to talk about. I loved the
I
first episode. This episode blew it out of the water.
This was a big time. I cried a lot during this episode, if I'm being honest. I think a lot of that was because of Chadwick Boseman, but it was just a really good episode with some really cool what if world building of like what this whole one moment that changed in it. We'll talk about it. Led to so much and has so much implications in this one world. I would love to explore this because we don't. That's the thing. We don't know if these are different worlds. We don't know if this was a continuation to the same timeline that we're at when Captain Carter was a thing. We don't know. We don't know yet. I think we'll get more clarification this third episode. But my God, I want to live more in this universe for a little bit longer.
My personal belief is we are all in the same world, and it's leading up. We know for a fact that whatever we get in the end, in the season finale, is gonna be the final battle. Where instead of it being Thanos, it's Ultron Prime. That's all we know. I think Marvel Zombies is gonna be one of the only ones that's out of unit. It's in a different like way, so it's gonna be
Mm.
interesting to see how we get to point A to point Z. I personally think this is all happening in the same world, though, in the same
Yeah,
universe.
I'm inclined to at least believe this part of it is like I could see this being in the same universe as the Captain Carter episode, especially where you're dealing with aspects of space and whatnot. But we'll get
Yes.
into it. Let's get into the news real quick so we can get into this episode recap. Cliff, any news for today?
Yeah, not a ton going on. If you were been interested in seeing Cruella de Vil and were not comfortable seeing it in theaters and not wanting to pay $30 for it, it is coming to Disney Plus, I believe, Friday. So it'll be free to watch for everyone. Other than that, I mean, cool local news. Black Panther 2 is filming in Massachusetts. It's filming in Worcester at MIT because of Riri Williams, which is going to be the Ironheart TV show on Disney Plus. She's actually making her theatrical debut in the MCU in Black Panther 2, which is really cool. And then I don't have a lot of others going. The Marvels started filming, which is only important to Disney Plus because we know that both Kamala Khan and I keep forgetting her name uh, in WandaVision.
Scarlet Witch? Who are you talking about?
No, the I should have had that up and
Agatha.
ready. No, I this is just so
Monica?
embarrassing. Monica will
Okay.
be in the film as well. It's going to focus around those three women. Going to be really cool. There's been rumors that they've cast Amadeus Chow, who is a younger version of the Hulk. We'll wait and see. There's just so much news we could talk about, but we should talk more about what if
Real
in
quick
this
before we do
sense.
it, we're gonna stick in the MCU real quick for last thing. The trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home is fantastic, and I'm very excited for it. I know that's not Disney Plus related, but it's MCU related. I'm very excited for it, but we'll get to that another day probably.
Yeah, I was very happy with that. My only other thing is with all the mask mandates coming back now, what's going to happen with Shang-Chi? I really don't want to go and sit in a movie theater with a mask on. I know it's very lame to complain about. It's such a first world problem. But hey, Disney, you could go one more. I maybe would pay $30 this time for one more.
I'll be at Shang-Chi with my mask on. I'm very excited for it. But
So
should we
we'll
jump
wait and see. It also
back
depends
to the news?
which places does it. That's all we have for news.
Yeah, want to jump into this to the episode?
Let's do it.
All right, so we go back to Morag in 2008, and instead of a Peter Quill, we get T'Challa playing the role of Star Lord. He's coming in to collect the orb, a very similar scene to the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, where Peter Quill has his headphones in, he's doing those little dance and stuff like that. T'Challa's not listening to music or anything like that, but he is going to collect the orb from its chamber, and he is confronted by Korath the Punisher and two Sakarans, and they have been assigned to obtain the object for Ronan the Accuser. This is very similar, but to the Guardians of the Galaxy, but we get a little bit of a twist here, where T'Challa reveals himself, and Korath goes total fanboy over him. He's the legendary outlaw Star-Lord, whereas Korath was like, "Who are you? What is Star-Lord?" When Peter Quill was like kind of bragging, like, "Dude, I'm Star-Lord," kind of a thing in Guardians. So it's a pretty funny little twist, because I thought that Korath was going to try to attack him. Korath does attack him, but T'Challa plays it really cool, where Korath is a really big fan of him, which I think is a funny little twist. It's basically like, "Yeah, you can use your gun against me, do this, that, whatever." All the meantime, he's like, can I join the Ravengers with you? Like, I'd like to get a job with you. I'd want to work for the legendary outlaw Star-Lord here. But Korath spars with them, only to be electrocuted by an energy field that was protecting the orb. Really, really funny scenes. And after T'Challa kills the other two Sicarians, he actually reconsiders Korath and hauls him out of the chamber and brings him to the Ravengers. But what did you think of the scene? Obviously super funny, especially with Korath being a fanboy of him instead of being like the Who in Guardians of the Galaxy when he's introduced to Peter Quill Star-Lord.
I really enjoyed it. It's very unrealistic for like the MCU and who Korath is, which is adds to a kind of a comedic value to it, which is important, especially in animation, where you can go dark for a while in live action and it's fine. I really enjoyed it. I know that recently there's been a huge like Star Lord hate group growing and growing. I am personally in the thing where he was very selfish when he punched Thanos.
Who
Um,
cares? It was a good storyline.
eh, still. But I thought it was just very funny to see the difference between it. But also just hearing Chadwick Boseman's voice was just also such a nice moment as well, because it was like perfect, right
Yeah.
on cue.
And that's one thing I wanted to talk about was hearing T'Challa in this first scene, like literally start crying right there. I was like, oh my god, like this is so sad, because it is his last MCU recording, basically, is this series. So
And
it
it's
was nice to hear, because I haven't heard his voice. Besides, I have watched Black Panther a couple times since he's passed in Avengers and whatnot, but nice to hear him in a brand new original role. I guess not original role, but kind of new project, I should say.
it's 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 a lot to like look back on when you think about Chadwick and what he did, because when What If was announced, Chadwick was the first person in the MCU to sign on to reprise his role as himself, and it just makes you wonder like what did he know, like because he didn't tell people. We know this already, that no one at Marvel, Kevin Feige, none of them knew what was happening, but he was the first person out of all the actors to sign on to come back and voice himself. So it's just like this thing where it's like he cared so much about this character and seeing and like wanted to see it as much as he could, and just the fact that they're not recasting him now definitely makes so much more sense as well.
Yeah, I'm glad they haven't recast him for that for sure. But T'Challa leaves and he encounters Sarkarian unit outside, a lot of soldiers. Luckily, Yondu arrives after a little bit of like, "Hey, buddy, like I gave you the code word. This means you can come here," from T'Challa. But Yondu finally arrives. He kills a bunch of the crew with his Yaka arrow. And while while Yondu, considers selling the orb to the highest bidder, T'Challa insists on keeping it to help the dying systems facing extinction, and the believe Korg with the orb and Korath in tow. Now, this was a nice little interesting thing, because obviously we know what's in that orb. It's the Power Stone. And the fact that, like, T'Challa is like, "No, we're going to use this to help people," was super important, whereas Peter Quill would have never done that. Peter Quill was just doing this to make his quick buck kind of thing. So it shows you T'Challa, even though we'll see in this flashback scene in a couple seconds, we'll talk about it, was taken from Wakanda. He still has that innate goodness in him, that he wants to just make the world a better place. So not using that power world for power, but using it to help others. I thought that was pretty exciting, or pretty interesting. I think.
Yeah, for sure. it was nice to see how he also had the relationship with Yondu.
Yeah,
Again, with the funny humor, where it was like a Ravager never travels alone. So we have this like it's just so interesting to see like the differences between Star Lord and T'Challa in the same role, and like it really is like what you make of it, because the Ravengers were this horrible crime group in the universe, and then T'Challa comes along and completely changes it, is their leader, and it's about, like you said, the innate good. It's what can you do for the universe, not what can you take from it.
yeah. Now we get a flashback scene. So the big question is here: how the heck did we get here? What was the variant moment that helped split the timeline that made T'Challa Star Lord in this universe? We get a flashback scene to 1988 Wakanda, and King T'Chaka, T'Challa's dad, is kind of discouraging his son on exploring the world, and he warns him of the destruction and pain that occurs outside. One night, T'Challa runs out of the force field that basically cloaks the outskirts of Wakanda, and right there, he's abducted by Yondu's subordinates. We learned that the big what if moment, the branch splitting event that happened here, was that instead of Yondu hunting down Peter Quill, he told his subordinates to hunt down Peter Quill. And basically, the way they were trying to track Peter was because they knew Ego was his dad, and he had a lot of cosmic energy about him, because basically, Peter Quill was born a god. And we don't know that till the second Guardians of the Galaxy, but Yondu did know that beforehand. And because Wakanda is basically on just a giant piece of a meteorite of, I almost said Beskar. How embarrassing would that have? Of vibranium. Excuse me. Because he's on one of those, there's a lot of cosmic energy here. So the two idiot underlings of Yondu was like, oh, there was a lot of cosmic energy. It had two eye holes. It had a mouth hole. It had two ear holes. It's obviously not.
I mean, they technically weren't wrong.
They weren't wrong. The description was correct, but not the guy Yondu was going after. But Cal is really persuasive and is like, listen, like I want to explore in the world, and I want to go out here and explore the universe. And Yondu invites him to come along and explore the galaxy with them. So that was the what if moment. Was instead of Yondu going after Peter Quill, the underlings did. They were dumb. They got T'Challa instead of Peter Quill. So Peter Quill just lives on Earth. No big deal. We'll see a little bit what happens later. But that's how T'Challa goes to space and joins the Ravengers. What do you think about this backstory, about the what if moment? I haven't thought on the what if moment, but what are your thoughts here?
It's an interesting what if moment, and that's the thing where what happened with Peggy is very different, I feel, to what happened, but it's also the whole thing where one small change can send ripples across everything.
Yeah.
Where
Sorry.
And you say they're idiots and you say they're underlings, but like, of course you'd be drawn to the cosmic power of vibranium. That's what Wakanda is built on. That totally makes sense. I also wonder if that's technically, actually never mind. We actually know where the meteorite that wiped out the dinosaurs hit. So that would be clever if that's where they grew from. But it's an interesting one, but it's like, did Peggy doing this change the cosmic way as well? Like, are these what ifs like staggering upon each other? I think, like you said, tomorrow, or if you're watching this live today, we're gonna find out with where is this what if in the world, and we're gonna see what happened, like, or in this universe, are they stacked upon each other, or are they all gonna come together and converge into a multiverse battle?
Yeah, and that's one thing I'm interested with too. But one thing I will say, what I love about the what if moments or the branching moments is they're so little. So like for Peggy, it was literally she just decided to stay down there instead of going up top for the experiment of siege Rogers. For this, it was like, oh, instead of Yondu going to find them, it was the two underlings. Like that was it. It was a big changes, like little minute things, like, oh no, I'm gonna send these two guys instead of me going, and that changed the entire world. Now, like you said too, this is where my question earlier comes in: are these in the same realities? Because this was they even said like this was the moment that things changed, was Yondu not going after Peter Quill. It was the underlings. So like in this situation, is this a branch from the branch of Peggy? Is it a separate branch completely? Like was this our main sacred timeline, MCU timeline from Infinity Saga that branched off at this moment, and then maybe, like you said, it collapses on with the Peggy Carter moment? We don't know yet, so it's interesting to see how this will work out, I guess.
And that is a good question, but we don't know yet. It's still
Right,
so early in it.
right. Now, back on present day, we see the Ravengers. T'Challa and Yondu have come back, and they're back with their fellow Ravengers as well. Korath is continuing to fawn over T'Challa and his adventures, which even includes, which this is a really cool little moment here, convincing Thanos to abandon his quest to decimate half the universe. Thanos is a Ravenger in here. He's redeemed, which I thought throughout this entire time, like, no, he's going to turn back to the bad side. He's completely redeemed. And it was basically T'Challa was the one that convinced him, like, hey, man, like, what you wanted to do was genocide. And there's better ways that we can save the planet. Because T'Challa kind of agreed with him. Like, yeah, everything is going to, like, hell, basically, because of, like, the population expanding. But there's other ways we can fix it. And Thanos sees the error of his ways and doesn't step half the universe out in this universe. He becomes a Ravager. Really hilarious. When I saw the Mad Titan in the Ravager clothes, I was dying laughing. I was like, are you kidding me? This is how they're going with it? And turns out he's a good guy in this, which is really, really funny. That one small change of T'Challa getting picked up because of Peter Quill. Again, Peter Quill screwed everybody, I guess, in this situation by not getting picked up. Saved the whole universe.
Kind of. Saved the universe from Thanos.
Yeah.
I am not going to say he's a good guy. He still advocates for genocide because he believes what he is doing is right. That's the thing with Thanos. Thanos, in his twisted mind throughout all of the MCU, always believed that what he was doing was for the good of it. But they call him the Mad Titan for a reason. I spoiled that for myself. I knew that Thanos joined the Ravengers, and I'm like...
I did not. It was great.
And it was still hilarious to me, especially because Josh Brolin reprised his role as the voice of Thanos. That is what I think kind of made it for me, even though I already knew it was coming.
Yeah, that was pretty cool that Josh came back for that. Another one of T'Challa's admirers, besides Korath, is also Drax, who is working as a bartender. We learned that his home world was not destroyed by a Kree invasion. Everybody was saved, including his wife and his daughter, so they weren't dead in this. But we also see Nebula in this too, and she doesn't look like the robotic Nebula we know. She has that one little eyepiece that's very similar to what like Gamora has. So in this world, does this mean that Gamora is a version of Nebula, or maybe they're not? Because in this world, Thanos was convinced that he didn't have to commit genocide, so maybe they're not both like super robotic like the Nebula we know from our Infinity War saga timeline is. So it was very interesting to see. She has hair and stuff like that and everything. Just really, really interesting.
She's who she is in the comics, is what I'll say. That's what she looks like. That is Nebula's original look.
Yeah,
that is
original.
That is her original Marvel Comics look. Gamora, though, it depends. Like we said, if our theory is correct and we are in the same universe, then we know Gamora is the Mad Titaness. It's not spoiled. We know from promos that Gamora dons Thanos' armor and sword.
Right.
So is that what happens when Thanos lays down his mantle? Does Gamora pick it up? And that's what we're going to have to ask.
Right.
And that would be really cool if, like we said, all these what ifs converge together. And Gamora's what if was what if Thanos laid down his weapon. Like, we know that it's purely based around what T'Challa did.
Right. And one other thing while T'Challa and Nebula are talking is T'Challa reveals that Yondu tried to return to Wakanda, but it had been destroyed in a war. I was a dummy, and I believed Yondu's word that T'Challa was saying. I was like, oh, that's so sad. Wakanda's gone. That's terrible. We found out later that was complete BS, but an interesting tidbit because it's going to help out with storyline later. So Nebula, who's part of the Ravengers as well, or at least works with them a little bit, gathers the Ravengers around for a briefing of what's called the Embers.
Works with them a little bit. She's dating the leader. She's dating the leader. Well, you said she sometimes works with him. She's literally dating the guy in charge.
Sorry, okay, yeah, but I didn't know if she was officially a Ravenger.
No, I don't think she's officially a Ravenger, but she's dating this version of Star-Lord.
Gathers them around for a briefing of the Embers of Genesis, which is an ancient cosmic dust that's able to help cultivate and transform entire ecosystems with the power to heal dying planets in ounces. So again, very much like, hey, this is the opposite of what you want to do, Thanos. Like this would be a better idea. However, A known batch of the materials located on Nowhere, where Tenevar Tavan, aka the Collector, has taken Thanos' place as the most ruthless warlord in the galaxy. I thought that was pretty interesting. That if Thanos wasn't around to do this, that the Collector would be. That was I would have thought it would have been somebody completely different, but pretty cool to see that. But knowing Tavan is involved, Yondu backs out, but relents when T'Challa argues on behalf of the Emperor's charitable potential. With the Black Order acting as nowhere security, Nebula and T'Challa, formulate a plan to reach Tavan. He and Yondu will smuggle him inside, while the Ravagers create a distraction to lure the Black Order outside. With Nebula and Yondu keeping Tavan occupied, T'Challa will be able to grab the embers of Genesis. Really cool plan. A lot of things happening here. Obviously, the first big one, no big bad Thanos means a big bad the Collector. Very interesting there. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's that whole theory where it's that power's a vacuum. So when one bad thing leaves, another something worse takes its place.
Yeah,
And
but
that's what it
the
was.
Collector, I guess.
And it is interesting that it was the Collector, especially because in I saw the thing in theory where someone was saying that they like their belief was that the Collector would be able to don Thor's hammer, like the Collector's worthy. I saw something about that earlier. I kind of just skipped over it, and I'm thinking back to it now. Um, but he's I would say he's worse because isn't the Collector technically a form of Celestial
I know,
or
I know nowhere is like located on a celestial head, but I'm not
yeah,
sure.
like he has something. I would have said actually no, because Thanos wipes him out with the gauntlet.
Right. Well, what's
So
interesting here is it makes sense. Like I was surprised, like the Collector is the one that takes Thanos' place, but it makes sense because the Collector was after the Infinity Stones as well. So with Thanos backing out of that race for the Infinity Stones, it makes sense that the Collector is it. The other cool thing too is we got the Black Order, and I absolutely love the Black Order. I think they're so cool in Infinity War, and as good as it was that they were dead, I was sad that they were dead. I know they kind of came back in Endgame, but then they're like wasted away again. But really cool to see the Black Order, and it's interesting that the Black Order, so, okay, Thanos isn't around. We're going to go after the next biggest guy to help him out, which would be the Collector in this situation. So it was cool to have some of the members of the Black Order in this, except especially Ebony Maw was really cool to see. So that was awesome.
yeah, it was cool to see them again. It's interesting that they went from one ruler to the other, especially because we know that they would have been employed by Thanos prior to him becoming a Ravager. It's interesting. I don't think we're ever going to get the answer, but why didn't they follow Thanos with him? Did they always have their sights on genocide?
Yeah, maybe they're just that bad. They just wanted to go with the next head of power, I guess, for
I
you.
guess. I guess so. I guess.
So
I guess so.
while this whole plan is being explained by Nebula, they actually show the plan in action. So basically, like I said, T'Challa is going to go through the Collector's exhibits, trying to find the Embers of Genesis. He actually finds Howard the Duck, which is funny because it's a nice little nod to seeing him in Guardians and at the very end of Endgame for that like 0.2 seconds. But he asks Howard the Duck for directions to the Embers, which doesn't really go well because Howard the Duck is kind of annoying. So um, instead of just like having Howard like point him and give him direction, he actually unleashes Howard the Duck, so Howard the Duck can give him a tour and be his tour guide.
Shout out to shout out to Seth Green for voicing Howard the Duck.
Absolutely.
Um, I love Seth Green. He's great.
Funny to have him have like a role in this as opposed to just a quick little tiny end credit scene. Like get the speaking voice, but also be a part of this episode was really funny.
Right, because Seth Green was the voice actor for him in the end credit scene, right?
Right. Yeah,
Yes.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe that's correct.
If people don't know, Robot Chicken, Family Guy, Austin Powers, very famous. I thought it was really clever because it's the whole thing where they're doing something very serious. They're taking on this big evil villain, but they're doing a heist with this funny little like quips within and making it enjoyable.
Absolutely. It's like a perfect thing for animation and a perfect thing for Marvel Studios, I think.
It's the perfect blend. It is
Yeah.
what's needed. And I cannot like emphasize enough how much I love this animation style. It's absolutely it's gorgeous.
It's great. Now, outside Proxima Midnight, my second favorite member of the Black Order, very close between her and Ebony Maw. But she jumps to knock out the Ravager group, who's like basically creating the diversion. But she quickly signals a lockdown after she realized that she fell for the diversion and figures out, oh my god, there's somebody in here that shouldn't be here. T'Challa manages to move past the closing gates, leaving Howard behind at the bar as he fetches a drink. So that was a nice little see you later, Howard. Have a good martini, buddy. But he comes across a hangar and he finds his necklace, reacting to a present of a nearby Royal Talon fighter, one of the Royal fighting ships, one of the aircraft of the people of Wakanda. It had very big like Superman vibes. Like it felt like this, like the Fortress of Solitude, where things wake up when Superman goes in there. That's what it reminded me of a little bit. But he ventures inside the Royal Talon fighter and he finds mannequins of Dora Milaje and a message from his father pleading for his return. His father's a lot older. He looks like King T'Chaka that we know in the MCU at this point, since he's grown up at this point and grown older. Immediately afterwards, Nebula turns Yondu and T'Challa into the Black Order, sending them to a cell with the other Ravengers. Now, this is like, oh my god, Nebula double-crossed us. And I was like, are you kidding me? But turns out this was part of the whole plan.
Come on, it's not a true heist without at least one or two double crosses. What did you learn anything from Rick and Morty?
It's a nice little triple cross. Yeah.
Did you learn anything from Rick and Morty? I will say, I know you made the comparison about like Superman. No, the Superman. I have never seen Man of Steel.
It's very good, pretty good.
I love Henry Cavill. So it's very shocking I haven't seen it. I'm just saying I thought you'd be more upset that I have not seen Man of Steel.
It is what it is. This is a DC movie. But T'Challa confronts Yondu. He's kind of PO'd, and rightfully so, that he lied about the fate of Wakanda. Because, like I said before, Yondu had told T'Challa, oh, I'll bring you back. And then I was like, oh, no, I can't because it's destroyed. Nope, it was not. His dad was actually looking for him this whole time. And luckily, because the Royal Talon fighter was in the Collector's possession, he was able to learn that information. Yondu insists that Earth has no place for a galactic explorer like his adopted son, but T'Challa dismisses him, declaring he was never family, which is obviously disappointing because we know how much in Guardians of the Galaxy it's that idea. It's a very big Star Wars idea too, the idea of found family, and that's what the Guardians of the Galaxy are, even with Yondu and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So we know that's like a direct shot to the heart to Yondu to be told like, nope, we were never family at this point. After Yondu looked at T'Challa like his own son at this point.
Yes, he was mad, but how mad was he? Because as we know, double crosses.
Right.
How much were they trying to sell it, and how much of it was real?
I think he was actually mad about this.
I would think so, but they do have a good reasoning behind it. Like Yondu was like, "You're the one that asked." Like it wasn't like Star-Lord where it was like, "You forced me. You were gonna eat me." It was very much like, "Oh, you asked to be shown the galaxy, and that's what you got."
Right, that's true too. Now Tivian summons T'Challa and he encases him to be relocated for display. But luckily, T'Challa is able to use that necklace that we were talking about, the one piece from home that he has, to bust out of it. Ebony Maw, again, one of my favorite Black Order members, uses his telekinesis to restrain him momentarily with like the broken glass shards from the display case, which is pretty interesting. But Karina, who we know that like the pink alien, who's more or less basically a slave to the Collector, actually kills Ebony Maw. Shout out Karina, that was pretty badass from a character that I did not think would be killing Ebony Maw anytime soon. But she kills him, being inspired by T'Challa's words against incarceration, which he had mentioned earlier in this episode too. Meanwhile, Nebula frees the Ravagers from the cells, revealing that she had triple-crossed Tivian to covertly retrieve the embers and settle their debt. Again, saying that T'Challa was in on this plan the whole time. As Proxima Midnight alerts the facilities to the Ravagers' escape, Tivian confronts T'Challa using an arsenal of items, including a gauntlet hacked off of a corpse, and a crown bestowing to him powers belonging to the Asgardian goddess of death, which was that big thing that Hela wears. That was pretty cool too. Little Easter eggs here and there. Wondering now how the heck did he get Hela's crown? I guess is what you probably call it. But Yondu arrives. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'd say my guess for that. It might be interesting to see the Party Thor episode to see if Hela's maybe a good guy in that. But It would make sense if we follow how things went, there's at least one Infinity Stone on Asgard, so maybe he killed Hela when trying to retrieve the stone. Who
Right.
knows?
And I mean, the sad thing too is that like Cronin, like corpse arm, basically, like that looks. I think Korg is Cronin, I believe. So like, does that mean Korg is dead and he's able to use that gauntlet? I don't even know. It was interesting. So I'm interested to see because I obviously had some nods to Ragnarok. So I'm wondering what happened to Ragnarok in this thing. But luckily, Yondu arrives to assist his son, but Tivian destroys the Yaka arrow, which RIP to the Yaka arrow, one of my favorite.
R.I.P.
But your thoughts on this? Obviously, the triple cast was big revealing because it's like, oh my god, Nebula was who we thought she was. But nope, she still is, for the most part, on the Ravager side. Not even on the most part, she is on the Ravager side, and she still has that trust, which is different from Nebula, who Nebula we've seen double cross before.
Yeah, I was kind of Team Nebula the whole time. I was like, I don't think it'd be that. Like, I was kind of sitting there like, we'll see what happens. Going back to Katarina, as the Grandmaster will always say, I don't like that word. They're prisoners with jobs. That's what Katarina is. She's a prisoner with a job. Really cool fight scene. I was very impressed by it. Benicio del Toro did a great job, and like the animation of him doing like the Hela. I'm doing it in person, so sorry to anyone listening. The way he like strokes the like helmet and like the horns go up, it was comical to me, but also like, oh, that's really cool at the same time.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty funny. And Benicio del Toro does a great job. I mean, I know he's voice acting in this, but still really, really cool job in this episode.
Absolutely.
Thanos remains behind, and he confronts the Black Order, which I thought was pretty cool. But one thing I was shocked with, again, with this What If universe, he's overpowered by Proxima Knight and Cull Obsidian, another awesome member of the Black. I just love the Black Order, man. I should get all their Funko Pops. But luckily, Nebula returns to save her father and forces Cull Obsidian to ingest some of the embers, which effectively turns him into a spawn of massive vegetation. Again, this is something you wouldn't really see normally, where Nebula is like saving her father. So that was interesting to see as well in this episode. But Thanos and Nebula use the sprouting stalks to safely return to their Ravager ship, where Yondu and T'Challa are working together to disarm Tivian of his control over his exhibits and in turn entrap him inside one of them. They turn over the control to Karina, who releases every single specimen from imprisonment and slavery and leaves Tivian at their mercy. So that was a pretty cool little. There was a lot going on here, right? Like a lot of pieces. It wasn't just T'Challa and Yondu overpowering Tivian. There was a lot of pieces where Karina was helping out a lot. Then obviously, Tivian's worst nightmare, where his collection is his downfall at the end of the day, was really interesting to see as well.
Cull Obsidian's death was ruthless. That to me was like an oh my god moment. Yeah. Like, holy crap.
It was beautifully animated too.
It was incredibly animated, and it really made Nebula a badass. I was at the end of it, I'm like, I hope they, like, when they make like wave 2 of like What If Funkos, she's one of them. That would be nice.
I hope so too.
Because I like the original look of her. And it was just so cool to see it, where I enjoyed the whole scene. It worked really well together, especially when it does end up coming down to family. Yeah. Even though, and that's the thing we usually talk about with Star Wars, but Star Wars is usually fathers caring for their sons. It was just still so interesting to see the way this fleshed out, and it was such a beautifully done story. And my biggest complaint with What If Captain Carter, my biggest complaint with that, and I did say it was very fast. It was such a fast. This pacing made it feel like a feature-length film without me like being like, okay, now it's finished. I can catch my breath now.
Yeah, you didn't have to cram in the fact that like the Guardians of the Galaxy were created here. Like that could be a whole nother episode. But you get to see the Ravagers in action. You get to see how T'Challa is in this universe. Exactly. Whereas like Captain Carter episode, like that was Captain America redone, smushed into 30 minutes, excuse me. Taking that 2-hour movie. So and this is just like a one story. You did get pieces here. You got the past story with how T'Challa became a Ravager and stuff like that. So you got that information. You still got moments from the Guardians movie, but at the end of the day, this was its complete own story. Oh, Captain Carter episode was too, but again, for the most part, let's call it spade a spade. It was Captain America squished into 35 minutes with different things happening and with a different hero.
Exactly. Where this was its own thing. This was
Everything could breathe in this.
exactly, which
Yeah.
was just so nice.
Now we talk about family and forgiveness and whatnot. So as the foliage overtakes nowhere, T'Challa fetches the royal Talon fighter, excuse me, and he escapes with Yondu, and the two basically make up, and T'Challa forgives him for his prior misleading about Wakanda being basically destroyed. Um, so while T'Challa recognizes the space as his lifelong home, Yondu does encourage him to return home to Wakanda with the whole Ravager gain, and he reunites with his biological family. We see King T'Chaka there, even Shuri's there. I would have actually liked to really have seen Shuri in Black Panther costume. I think that would have been kind of cool. We didn't get that. She was just in her regular garb from the Black Panther first movie, but whatever, we'll take what we can get. As the Ravagers and Wakandan royals share the time together, a man is shown working at a Dairy Queen when he's met by a mysterious visitor, and we find out that it is Ego visiting Peter Quill. The Watcher notes that this meeting could spell the end of the universe, but that's a story for another time. I hope we get that story for another time. It is not going to be episode 3 from what we can gather, because episode 3 is going to be basically what if the Avengers died, Earth's Mightiest Avengers died, or Earth's Mightiest Heroes died. So we're not getting that. I don't know if we will get this story. Maybe it'll be a season 2, or maybe it's just a complete nope, one off. This is a cliffhanger that in this universe this happens, but you'll never know what happens. And I really hope we don't know what happened, or I hope we don't never know what happens. I guess what I want to say. I want to know what happens in this. So give me that story one day. Go forward with your thoughts here.
That was the thing where it was pretty much them saying if this happens, Star-Lord is just a loser. That's kind of that's really the feel I got for it, where they really were just it really felt like they were beating, at the end I was like, damn, they just kept beating on this poor guy that's not even in it until the end where he's dead, where he's gonna die.
Maybe he gets used by Ego, so that would be interesting.
That's what I think is definitely gonna happen. But that's the thing where we avoided Thanos. We know we avoided Thanos, but then the Ego plot got sped up. But this time, there's no one to actually stop Ego, because at the time, the person trained to do this has no training and has just learned about aliens.
Yeah. What I did like too about this, before that was a nice little. It wasn't an end credit scene, but it might as well have been an end credit scene. I don't think they're gonna do end credit scenes for What If. But again, that probably would have been an end credit scene in any Marvel movie, that little moment there. But going back to the little party get together of T'Challa coming home to Wakanda, I love that Thanos is being embraced by the Dora Milaje and by the Wakanda people in general, where he's eating and drinking with them, because obviously that would have never happened in the Infinity Saga timeline. But still, he's trying to be no, what I was doing was really good, and one of the Dora Milaje is that's just genocide, right? And he goes, no, it's different. I thought genocide is not funny, but the way that Thanos is still trying to argue yeah, T'Challa saved me, but I still think it was a good idea. I really do. I thought that was pretty funny that he's still fighting for his idea there.
It's fine. Here's the thing with comedy. Comedy is subjective, where if someone like you or me made a joke about that, it's awful. You shouldn't be joking about that.
Yeah.
But the fact that the character himself is Thanos, who is known throughout the MCU and throughout all of Marvel as being a genocidal maniac, is no longer committing it. He's just saying, oh, but it could work in this sense. He's trying to frame himself in a new way. That's the thing. And that's why it works. You're oh my god, he keeps trying, and that makes me think he's still kind of set in his ways, but he's changed also.
Right.
And I will say, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, talking about the third episode, all we know, I thought it's going to be the what if Loki came to Earth but was diplomatic. All we know is that it's going to be centered around Nick Fury and Black Widow. We got the posters for episode 3 on the official.
Clip shows Loki in this too, so Loki's going to be.
Oh, it does. Okay, so then it is. Supposedly, it's what if Loki presented himself to the governments of Earth as King of Asgard.
So I think the episode title is what if Earth's Mightiest Heroes died or something like that. So I think it could be a little bit of both for this. Maybe he becomes part of the Avengers. I don't really know, but we'll see.
That'd be interesting.
I'm excited for this. I'm really excited. I absolutely love this show. I know I said that a bunch for Bad Batch. I'm liking this a lot more than Bad Batch. I think the big thing for Bad Batch with me, and I know we're not doing a Bad Batch episode right now, but I thought the 16 episodes was too much. in the long run, I really like these shorter seasons because I like more concise stories. I don't need a lot of fluff. And this was just a perfect episode. So far, 2 home runs with episode 1 and 2 between Captain Carter and Star Lord or T'Challa as Star Lord. Excuse me. I can't wait for tomorrow, or when you're listening to this episode today for episode 3. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very much excited for it. People have kind of fleshed out what the rest of the season's gonna look like, which is really cool. Episode by episode, like the general ones. I won't go through it again. We talked about it. Maybe we'll talk about it at the end of this week going forward, what we're going to expect, because we still know we're getting Party Thor, Sorcerer Supreme. What is Yeah, Sorcerer Supreme.
Doctor Strange. We're gonna get the
We're going to get Zombie Hunter Spider Man. We're going to get Party
Zombie,
Thor, I think is what they call him, and then Ultron Prime, as well as Marvel Zombies. So it's going to be really cool. That's the fun thing. This is like with Bad Batch, we know where it's going from point A to point B to an extent. This is brand new. It's canon, but it's new. Like Doctor Strange said in the Spider-Man trailer yesterday. And the multiverse is something we know grossly little about.
Yes.
And that's
100%.
what's so great about What If, where we know what's coming, but we don't at the same time.
And I love it. I absolutely love it.
Absolutely.
Cliff, anything else today for this?
I'm just excited for tomorrow, and then rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. It's nice that we get one last.
That little tribute at the end was very
yes,
cute.
The little tribute at the end was very nice. I thought it was very much needed. It was needed and not needed at the same time because we knew what this episode was. We know what this show is towards the end when they all team up. But it was nice to see it, and it obviously gets you in the feels. Absolutely.
Cliff, where can people find you on social media if they want to talk more about What If?
You can find me at CPRobinson81.
And you can find me on Twitter at CamRainbow75. You can find the podcast on Twitter at Stream the Mouse. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Stream with the Mouse. Be sure to listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, as well as our YouTube channel. Just search for Streaming with the Mouse. Be sure to like, rate, review, subscribe, all the above to our different platforms and shows so you never miss an episode of Streaming with the Mouse. Again, we apologize for the little hiatus we took. I was on vacation last week. Cliff was busy. Wasn't able to do it, but we're back.
It's life.
What If. Life happens. Excited to talk about What If. Excited to talk more. We'll probably do a Bad Batch eventually as well. But thanks so much. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of What If that came out. So what if the Earth's Mightiest Heroes died? We're excited to talk about it next week. But thanks so much for listening. We hope you all have a magical day. Thanks for listening to Stream with the Mouse.
Bye, guys.